6:31 p.m. And given that our committee is all here, we do not have to do roll call vote. Okay. So our first order of business is public comment, which we did not receive any. No. Okay. Next is a report from our liaison that we have. You have your Deb.
Oh, are we reporting out or are we just attaching it?
So
The report.
The report
is attached.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So, yep, go
I
ahead.
see the report from the CPAC liaison. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay.
I haven't, there's another one that I haven't gotten to yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So next, is there any follow-up questions to our CPAC liaison regarding the report attached?
No, but I'm curious about what is the other one?
There was another meeting. I just didn't get my report out. There was the
Oh,
October.
not another committee.
No,
Not another, okay.
just another
Yeah, yeah.
CPAC meeting. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So next up we have on our list is student activities, middle school student clubs, which I have since learned writing the agenda that this is not something that needs to be presented on or voted on. It is for our acknowledgement and can be moved to our consent agenda. Sarah?
What if we have questions, small questions?
Well, given that it is not actually in our consent agenda, we can ask small questions if you would like to.
Yes, so I guess to Dr. Z, I'm glad to see so many clubs. I was struck, though, that many of them meet during a lunch period, and some, or maybe just one, meets during advisory. So I was wondering, because I forget how long the lunch periods are, and do the students have time to go get their lunch if they need to get it from the cafeteria, and just how that works. And then meeting during advisory, I thought advisory was like required, so how can a club meet during advisory?
Thank you, Sarah. Two things. Yes, they will have time to go get their lunch. A lot of them go get their lunches and either eat in the cafeteria or eat in the classroom with the teacher. So that's there. The main reason why the majority of the clubs are held during the day is because of transportation, especially for students who live further away from Amherst. So it's to give them the opportunity to actually take part. And I would have to confirm about the one that's happening during advisory, because that may have been, so give me some time to follow up on that one and get back to you.
Thank you. Yeah, because we heard there was a curriculum now for advisory, so thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Next is our discussion on budget cost centers. Sarah, given that you
Sure.
are chair of the Budget and Audit Subcommittee, would you like to start this?
Sure,
discussion?
and some of this, then the background is repeated in the, under attachment to item D. So the Budget and Audit Subcommittee has met twice since our retreat with Tracy Novick, where we learned we should, at least the best practice is that we approve budget by cost center. And so we have had an initial discussion with Dr. Z and Shannon about like, what are our cost centers, and kind of what are we approving when we pass a budget. And then 2 weeks ago today, Shannon presented to the Budget and Audit Subcommittee a draft list of proposed cost centers, a proposed list of cost centers. And we had the committee endorsed those, was pleased to see those. We had a discussion, and it sounded then like the business office could, if they were approved, just go ahead and start reporting and budgeting with those cost centers in mind. We were also told that each district could have its didn't have to have the same set of cost centers. So, so we have the draft list of cost centers, and it has the support of the Budget and Audit Subcommittee, and then I don't know what has happened. I don't understand what has happened since, because this is the first time that the Regional Committee has had a chance to discuss them, and the Amherst School Committee hasn't discussed them yet. So I have the feeling there's been pushback, but I don't know from whom or how, because we haven't had a meeting. So I need enlightenment.
Thank you, Sarah. William?
Where are the cost centers that were suggested? Were they on here?
It's the second item, 10, 14, 25.
Oh, perfect, thank you, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right. Although, I mean, we saw this on September 30th at our meeting, so this must be the date it was posted.
Okay. Tim, was your hand also up?
Yes.
Thought I saw that. Okay.
Right,
Take it away.
so I am just echoing Sarah that we got the superintendent update last Tuesday, which was great. And I skimmed it and didn't have time to go into it in detail in time to send questions, which I was fine with. And then we got more email on Thursday and more email on Friday that seemed to change the content of what was being proposed as reported on Tuesday. So I was very confused about what was being proposed. Now, I do want to reflect that either set of cost centers that were proposed seem fine to me. But I'm not clear on what happened between Tuesday and Thursday. There was a comment in one of the emails about getting committee feedback. It kind of makes it seem like committee action took place, but there was no public meeting. So that's my observation of that, whatever happened there. I would also say that, Dr. Z, you made a comment that given all the other work that you have to do, that everyone in your office has to do right now, that you're very limited in terms of the time you can invest in this process. And I think it's good that you said that. It's good that you're drawing that line, and I agree. There are huge projects, and I don't want this matter to take more time than it needs to.
Thank you, Tim. Okay. Dr. Z or Shannon, would you care to share some of the feedback?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll jump in and Shannon is available. So we, like Sarah said, we did go back, we did the research. We met with other districts, including other states, to determine like, hey, what's some best practice out there? We did our research. I can say what happened. What occurred was we knew that we had to go to the 3 committees separately because they have the opportunities to each determine what their cost centers are. And there was a level of pushback, but that's normal. I think what occurred from our standpoint as a team was really honestly and truly the budget, as I've always been told and very clear, like I am the individual who, for lack of a better word, I want to be very clear. Like I have been very transparent in my leadership from the time I've come in here. And for me, a lot of the time, it's not ever about the pushback, but it's about how it's presented. And my team and I, we work very hard on what happens. And when there are things that we reflect upon and we debrief upon after meetings, and we notice that in the conversation, it comes off a lot of times as if there are things that we are trying to do, or in the examples that we are being accused of, that we would rather be able to step back from. And so we did present to one committee already. We have their feedback written down, and then we have the next steps with that committee. In sending my update, there were some questions that I got back and then some feedback that we received. And in that, it actually came across to me in the reflection of, one, just trying to make sure that we understand, like, as individuals who are in this, we live this and breathe this and we work this. So Shannon does this all the time, and it makes sense to us what we are trying to say and what we are recommending based on where we currently are. but there is a disconnect in the conversation and in what is being asked for. So as information came and questions came, I kind of compiled it and put it in a way so that the whole committee could know. There wasn't a back-end discussion. These were questions that were faced to me, and I wanted the committee to be fully informed that maybe this is coming from one person, but everyone may have this question. I even share like some of the examples that we looked at. Some of the districts in Massachusetts, one of the districts was actually recognized for their budget. And in the end, what we realized was this is going to take a lot of time, current work. This is not the time for us because we are currently entering into budgeting season. And we are to me, a skeleton crew central office. And so at this point, what my thing is I do not mind, and neither does the team. Shannon and I, we did talk, and we talked about our bandwidth and all of the things that we need to do. We do not mind consulting and collaborating through the subcommittees, but we will not be taking the lead in presenting these cost centers. So I will just be doing my job as an advisor of the committees and providing advice, but we will not be taking the lead in this. And I think that will also help to disconnect us from receiving the commentary, the pushback, the what ifs, the examples, because at the end of the day, they may be hypotheticals, but for us, those are our jobs and those are the things that we do. So when hypotheticals are thrown around and examples around why things need to be the way they need to be or not be the way they need to be, we need to disconnect ourselves from that because we are also the individuals providing that consult and who are doing that work, and our professionalism means a lot to us. So what I have written is these are our recommendations. We are willing to work with whatever the school committee decides to do, but we will not be doing the work around presenting that, and we will continue to consult. But our recommendation right now for us is for us to continue to where we're at or where we will be in terms of what we currently have, and that's why I attached the Q4 so you can see what are the current cost centers that we have or how we lay out our reporting. But I think there's a lot of understanding that needs to happen with the committee around cost centers, expectations, and we just are not in a place to do that right now.
Thank you, Dr. Z. Irv?
I obviously missed a lot of the discussions on this when I went through all of this, and I looked at the recommendation and also the cost centers as presented by the subcommittee. I was wondering, is there a difference that makes a difference between these two? And I don't think so. I think that where we are right now, and I take the recommendations, I looked at the recommendations, that stays, that really, if there was a really big difference that made a difference, I would say, yeah, that's great. But I don't see it. I don't see it. So I actually agree with the recommendations that were put forward, that we stay where we are, and that to put any additional work in this, there would need to be full explanation of why we should be doing it differently. And I don't see that anywhere. I don't see that where, hey, we should do it this way because this is a better way, and this is a better way because A, B, C, D. There is no arguments put forward unless there are some arguments put forward somewhere else that I've missed that would advocate for a new system rather than where we are right now.
Thank you, Irv. Tim?
It would help if we could clarify what we're not changing and what our cost centers are. There's a lot of documents on the agenda. There's a lot of emails in my inbox.
All true. So, Dr. Z, Shannon, please correct me if I'm wrong. So what, can you bring up the Q4, please? So
Correct.
this one that has been this formula, thank you, which has been used for a long time, is what is the current system of breakdown in cost centers. This
Yes.
is what Dr. Z and Shannon are proposing to continue with until there is
Sure.
more about, yep. Go ahead.
So makes sense. This is what we see from the quarterly report that Shannon presents. And this is what we see in the early part of the budget book. And can we clarify what this means? Because later in the budget book, there are then hundreds of pages of general line item departments. Those were, I want to confirm here tonight, those are not cost centers. Those general line items in the budget book are not cost centers, is what we're deciding here.
Correct. The line items in the hundreds of pages of budget book it's a line item, it is not a cost center. A line item falls underneath a specific cost center.
Okay. And so the way it has been in the past and the way it will be for now is that the school committee is not going to be voting on math budget and English budget and world language budget and so forth.
Correct. That is not a cost center. What will be our cost centers moving forward are these items that are listed here.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah?
So then to close the loop, I guess, the budgets that we will, a budget that we will vote on in March or whenever it is going to, regardless of whatever other presentation or information we have received and discussed, it will present the budget in this format as far as the expenses are concerned. I guess I need to ask Dr. Z, is that what you're proposing?
So, and I'm gonna ask Shannon to chime in here because I want to be clear on how I say this as well. Shannon?
Yep, I'm here.
So for me, in terms of what we present, and this is why there was the request for clarity. In terms of what we present at the end, we don't usually present in the way of the Q4 format, correct, Shannon?
Right.
However, this is how we report out, and this seems to be what everyone from the feedback and things is looking at. What we were proposing and what we worked on originally, which was the second document. The second document talks about instruction. It talks about which combine the salaries and expenses. What we were proposing was to pull out to make the specific cost centers more clearer, because our current budget book reads in different ways, which it reads not just by regular education, special education, it also reads by location. There's so many different formats, Sarah. I know what you're asking. So you're asking at the end, what are you voting? You can vote, and Shannon, please chime in here, by the Q4, like how the Q4 looks. Shannon?
Yeah, so in the past, it was only voted the bottom line total number of the budget. But from what I gathered, MASC has told you you should be voting based on those cost centers. So if that's the case, as part of the budget document, you will see a roll-up very similar to this for the FY27 budget, and then you can vote line by line if that's what you need to do.
All right, I have Sarah, Jennifer, Tim, and Sarah, Jennifer, Deb, William, and then Tim, because you've already spoke, and Bridget.
I thought I just asked my question, but,
Jennifer.
okay.
No, I didn't have my hand up.
You did not.
no.
How did that happen? All right. Deb.
Thank you for the clarity on that. It's sort of the process also eluded me. And I think the next time we open up this can of worms, I think we should talk about process beforehand, because I think it certainly wasn't my understanding that we were asking you all to do an inordinate amount of work to kind of bring us into alignment with MASC recommendation, based on the fact that we had been doing this for a long time the way it is. I do have a question about, I know I asked this of Sarah. I'm sorry, I didn't really understand your answer, so I'm just going to ask it in general. We do vote a bottom line, I know that, but then we move money between lines if one is trending high. So we vote to do that, and that's the part that's confused me. Maybe I could get some clarity on that? Are we acting like they are budget, cost centers, even though we didn't officially vote them?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and so this process that we're doing tonight will just formalize something that was implicit,
Right.
okay?
And that was in our subcommittee, an option from the very start. It's
Okay.
like, we could just continue doing what we've been doing and just, as you say, formalize it.
Yeah.
I guess our minutes are public. I don't need to rehash it. It was suggested to us that these are not actually cost centers and there were better ways of doing it,
Okay.
which may be the case, but if there isn't time to implement something else at this point, that's fine. But I guess then I hope this topic can be revisited early in the fall next year. Okay?
So, yeah, so when we do that, please, let's just talk about the process pretty clearly, because I don't think the cost centers came up in front of the Amherst School Committee.
No, not yet.
So there's just a lot of getting I know that there's no Amherst School Committee budget, not at subcommittee. There's just a process, and I would reinforce that certainly our professionals are the people we consult with, but my expectation is this kind of thing is something that the committee or the subcommittee would take the lead on.
Yes, and
Yeah.
we have meant to, thought we
Yeah.
did. We've been offered information that we have brought forward, so
Okay.
I'm still kind of puzzled about how it's
Okay.
turned out, but
All right,
be that as it may.
thank you.
I think William was next. My list got all wonky, I apologize.
As the person who signs the warrants, if we're going to do this cost centers, can you explain to me why the warrants don't mirror what the cost centers are? And should they? I don't know, I'm asking.
I think that would be difficult. I don't know. I just looked at the payroll warrant. So there's two different warrants. There's a payroll warrant that payroll sends out every time we run a payroll biweekly, and then there's a warrant through AP that pays all of our invoices. So I'm just pulling up the difference between the two. But at the payroll warrant, I think it would be very difficult for us to then set up a template that says this amount is for this cost center and this amount is for this. I mean, it can be done. I'm sure if there's a will, there's a way. But it'll take a little bit of time to figure that out.
So, and my second thing is I would like to, before we even answer that question, to determine if a warrant has to be formatted in that way. I think we've done a lot of things based on practice, convenience, or even what someone may or may not feel should happen. I think we need to do on what needs to happen. So I would prefer that before Shannon's answer goes as the answer of record, that we look into it and we determine what the actual format of a warrant should be, so that I was going to jump in, but Shannon jumped in. We will note that question and get back to the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bridget?
Thanks. So I agree with the recommendation Dr. Z made, and I agree with Irv. I think we have such a big list of priorities, and that Shannon's hardest time of the year is on deck. And so I wouldn't want to be asking the team to do any more. I also feel like as we do it, we need to think about best practices and models of transparency, because as I see it in the conversation, I see two things maybe getting conflated that I need to have separated out so I don't have anxiety about my job as a Democratic leader, right? And that's like, there's the transfers, these cost centers that we do audits and quarterly and make sure that the money's staying in the categories and nothing's going way too over or under, and if it does, we have an explanation. So that's really good and important work. But then there's the time of year where we're looking at what are the priorities of the school district for the next year, what are the impacts of what we're voting on as a budget, and I think for that, those line items, the budget book that we get is really important so people understand, like, hey, this is what's coming forward, this is what we don't have the funds for, this is how the pieces meet. And that's what this committee's familiar with and what the community has a history of expecting. And so I wouldn't want to make that change without some real serious, careful deliberation as well about, like, that's nothing I would want to rush into without seeing some best practices that align both with the auditing practices, but also with the democratic practices that we need. So I'm great with holding for now, because there's that one other piece that comes to me is like, how do we track historically what's happening and where our numbers are going up or down? And if we change now, that's a complicated move as well.
Tim?
So as far as process, when the subcommittee met the first time in September, we talked a lot about this, and we arrived at, like, what is the smallest unit of change that we can make that won't create a bunch of work for Shannon and for others in central office, but also get us to a step where we are moving towards cost centers that make sense for the district and that make sense for whatever it is that Mask has in mind. And at first, we actually voted on this, what we're seeing proposed today, and then Dr. Z said we should use a different setup of cost centers, and we said, oh, okay, let's vote to rescind the vote we just made. And what should it be? And we decided, well, we trust y'all to just propose at an upcoming regional school committee meeting what you think the cost center should be. And so that's how we arrived here today. The idea being that the larger committee can look at whatever was proposed and discuss it. So if it's to make no change, that's great. But we were also wrestling with the concept that nobody was really clear on whether we had cost centers. Okay, and I saw, Dr. Z, that you wrote many times in your many emails that we do have cost centers and we've always had cost centers, and that's great. I just don't know where that was decided and how it's verified, right? So I just, for clarity's sake, it would be great if we could treat this moment as an opportunity to say, as a committee, we agree that these are our cost centers.
Dr. Z? Did you want to respond
Thank
to
you,
that?
Tim.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Tim, you are absolutely correct. And even if you notice some of the examples I attached of other districts, I showed where they had like the overarching bubble, right? That was like instruction, which is what we looked at. We wanted to really clarify the budget and say, these are our main goals. Now, the thing that caused us to make the recommendation we did was, as we started to see questions coming in, as we started to hear concerns, we noted that this was going to take us a lot more time than we currently did. We also, Shannon and I had a discussion of, perhaps because things have been practiced for so long, no one formalized and said what we currently have in the way that we did, right? Because ideally, if Amherst Regional School, Public School District wants to say that what they currently report out in monthly is the cost centers, that is not our decision. We are only here to consult and make recommendations. So seeing the feedback, seeing the things, looking at everything that we would need to do, and knowing that in the next couple steps, that's why there's more to my memorandum. My memorandum actually says, these are our recommendations because we don't have it, but we are willing to continue working with the committee. And when the committee decides what they would like as cost centers, we will implement it. So it's not to say like that's why the suggestion from before is still there from the subcommittee. I just said, listen, at this point, I reflected on all the feedback that I've got. I've looked at the thing where they are. It was sent to all three committees saying, this is the recommendation to all three committees. And for this one, here's the Q4 report, so you can see what you've had from before. We've never voted by cost centers for the budget. Historically, it's been bottom line. It's 35 million, it's 35, like whatever the million is, that's what's voted. What we're saying is if we would like to change this year, for us, we are in the middle of getting into ramping up for budget season. If we would like to, for this year, for right now, to allow us to continue our work and say, this is what the budget is currently formulated at, this is what we currently to report out as. We don't have to make any changes to our system. We don't have to be back and forth editing anything. This is what we currently have. If there is a conversation that needs to go in, Tim, I think is in clarifying and defining these areas, that is fine too, that we can consult on those conversations. But what I'm saying is, and what the team is saying is, if we have to continue to be in this back and forth conversation of editing and revising and all these things with everything else that we currently have, this is where we currently report out as, this would be our cost centers. And I think we do need to formalize it. It's never, like, since I've been here, hasn't been formalized. That was the conversation at the retreat. No one was clear. This is where this conversation started. I myself wasn't sure, but like in Shannon and I discussion, this is what we had, this is how we reported. Let's just move from here.
Okay, so my follow-up question is, you are recommending the payroll accounts and the expense accounts seen in the file Q4 balancing, open parentheses 1, close parentheses, dot PDF.
Be our cost centers.
As our cost centers. That's the recommendation?
I recommend that we use a system we currently have. Is it best practice?
I don't know what we currently have. I want
That
to,
is one behind
so,
That is what we currently have.
okay,
The Q4.
then
The one you just read.
I make a motion that we formally accept as our cost centers the payroll accounts and expense accounts seen on the screen behind me, which I believe are in Q4 balancing, open parentheses 1, close parentheses, dot PDF attached to the agenda item.
Second.
That was, okay. Motion to formally accept the cost centers as listed in Q4 balancing 1 parentheses.
Yes.
Is it, okay. I have Irv and then Anna and then Sarah. Okay.
No, I think I've already said what I needed to say, and I just want to, I'm sort of like lost here and thinking, wow, well, I was trying to figure out what had been broken and why were we trying to fix it, and what this discussion is all about, but we have no background material on that, which was forthcoming from the subcommittee. You know, no arguments for or against, no clarity, no clarifying. Here it is, right here. This is what it is. Now, if you're asking whether one should follow all of the emails back and forth, that's not what this is. It should be that if the committee is making a recommendation, or once the subcommittee is making a recommendation, and if they want the committee to consider it, then present something in the form that we can look at and deliberate on. This makes it so nebulous, and it wastes a lot of time going back and forth because I don't know what we're talking about.
Okay, thank you. Anna?
So I did a little research on cost centers because I was really confused. I was trying to figure out like what even is a cost center and what's the best practices for cost centers. Amazingly, there is zero guidance. Nobody will define what a cost center is other than it's a functional area. Tracy Novak says that there is absolutely zero guidance from MASC, that it could be anything that is useful for us. I talked to Caitlin Sheridan, who is the finance director for Shutesbury. Well, she's for Union 28. But she helps us with the Shutesbury Elementary School budget as well. And functionally, the entire operating budget is the cost center in Shutesbury. The revolving funds, the school choice funds, some of these other things are outside of the operating budget, and they function differently. So if you need to transfer money from school choice to the operating budget, or if you need to transfer money from some grant to the operating budget, then you have to vote on it. But inside the entire operating budget, they can transfer money to make the budget whole at the end of the day. So if they find that they're a little over in one area and a little under in another area, they can just like move the money. It's all fungible, it's all fine, and it all works out in the end. And they don't have to go back to the school committee to request a transfer. If we were to do something like that in the region, we could make a cost center be each elementary school. Each elementary school is its own cost center. We could, but that's not for the region, right? But for the superintendency union, we could have the middle school be its own cost center, and we could have the high school be its own cost center. We could have Summit Academy be its own cost center. Or we could have the entire region be its own cost center, and DESI and MASC would be like, that works. So any further breakdown, but then what I would say is cost centers have to do with how finances are managed within, underneath that. So like, we vote a budget, and as long as everything stays within that budget, everything's fine. I think reporting structure and telling the school committee how the district is spending its money has very little to do with what we define as a cost center. Cost center is really just giving the superintendent and the finance director the ability to move money around within that area to serve the purposes of that functional area to their best ability. So I think there's two different things that we're talking about. One is reporting and one is cost centers. And so if at this point, I do think that maybe we should just keep doing what we're doing and move forward for at least the next fiscal year. And then we can have like a deeper conversation as we move forward as to whether we want to change the cost centers, even as we maintain the exact same reporting structure. And I don't know if we keep the reporting structure, if that makes the cost centers a little bit more complicated, because we don't want the superintendent and the finance director to be running 2 levels of books if that's what they have to do. If we change the cost centers to be school by school, does that complicate finances for them and their reporting structure when they combine all the schools together? And are they able to dig it out as these are expenses allocated to this school and these are expenses allocated to this school? And then like the central office could be its own cost center as well. So if we did it that way, would that then complicate the way we report stuff to the school committee in the current status, or would it not matter? So I think that these are all things that we can discuss going forward. I think at this point, maybe just sticking with what we got is the right answer, and then having a longer conversation about how to transform into a more flexible or a more functional cost center structure without screwing up the reporting structure that we already have. But that's,
Thank you.
it was a long and not very fulfilling research project.
So I have Sarah, Tim, and then Jennifer, and then given what is going on here, I feel like we should move on. Plus, we also do have a motion on the table that we need to manage.
Right.
Sarah,
I was going to make a motion, so.
we already have a motion.
I know, so I no longer have anything to say.
So, cross that off. All right, I'm gonna let Jennifer go first because she hasn't spoken yet, and then Tim.
I withdraw.
Okay. Tim,
Just to clarify the current proposal, so again, we, at the subcommittee meeting, talked about what is the smallest unit of change we can make right now to get us started on our long journey up Mount Compliance, wherever that compliance is defined, towards cost centers that work well for the district and that work well for the committee and that work well for everyone involved. It's gonna take multiple years to do this because it's make a change, see how the fiscal year goes. Talk about another change, see how that fiscal year goes, right? So we need to see the results. And then along the way, something NIBE talked about, which I found very illuminating at the subcommittee meeting, is that cost centers function best when you treat them as not as necessarily units of reporting, not necessarily as units of warrant management and cash flow, but as units of metrics gathering, of performance management, right? So that's where cost centers are most powerful for a committee, is that you define cost centers that work well for the schools. It could be schools, by the way, and NIBE talked about how that's one possible structure we could look at. One for the middle school, one for the high school, and so forth. That may not be the right scheme for our district, but at any rate, there are a lot of possibilities. But then you figure out, okay, let's structure a regular review of metrics gathering so that we can understand performance by cost center. And then ideally, every fiscal year when we're approving the budget, we can look at those performance metrics and say, okay, that cost center is doing great. Let's continue voting the kind of budget for it that we think it needs. This cost center, the metrics kind of tell us that maybe performance needs some help. Maybe we need more money in that cost center. And that's the kind of support for our decision making that ideally we want to get to. But for right now, smallest change possible just to set us up for clarity and moving ahead with that longer term change beginning next year.
Bridget, and then I think we should move to a vote.
Okay, I don't want to sound flip, because I do know Tracy Novak said this was the way we should work, but then when we went to look at how it should work, there was, a lot of nebulous thought around it. For me, I have the question, why? Why, that sounds like a really big project, and we have such huge priorities as a school committee. We're still having bullying issues. We've got a huge budget in front of us. We've got, all the things that Dr. Z listed in her thing. And I'm not on the budget and audit subcommittee, so I trust you guys to prioritize according to what's most important for the district at this moment. But I still have some questions. Why is this, except for, okay, we're following a rule. Nobody really knows quite how it works at the state, and those are the people who told us it's a rule we have to follow. So I'd vote no on the motion and maintain the current practice until I hear something that's truly compelling to me on why we put in all this effort and time now.
Okay. So the motion reads to formally accept the cost centers as listed in Q4 balancing, which is, so these will be the cost centers as projected on the screen right here.
Yeah, just a point of order, the payroll accounts and expense accounts, just to be specific.
Not just those two, but what's underneath them.
Yes,
Yes.
those are the names of groups of accounts.
Yes,
we will-
all right, so the way I hear your motion, it says salaries, contracts, substitutes, regular education, special education, other programs, blah, 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 all the way down to additions and reductions. Those 15 items, I did not count them, will be the cost centers.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All those we're all right. Just get to raise hands. All those in favor of the motion to formally accept the cost centers as listed here, 15-ish of them. All those in favor vote, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? 3. All those abstaining? You're,
What to do?
I guess you're abstaining?
I'll just
Abstaining, just
Sure. I'll just
abstaining.
on this one.
All right, so the motion passes with 5 yes, 3 no, and 1 abstention. Okay. So, great. Thank you all for that. Okay. Next up is an update regarding the Amherst sixth grader move to the middle school from the regional perspective. So how that will look for us here as with our regional hats on. Dr. Z.
Good evening. I don't know if Megan, you have the PowerPoint up?
Almost.
Okay, so I know that I emailed everyone, I believe I emailed these documents to the school committee. We had an issue uploading the layout. So when I talk about the layout, we did have to crop it to just the middle school section. I'm gonna start off by saying real briefly that I understand that there may be a lot of feedback, but I also want to say that as a superintendent of the region, that in this situation, I'm speaking from the regional perspective, and I will only speak for the regional perspective in this situation. And I want to be clear that there's some things that I actually need the school committee support on in this. So, in terms of space use, that's what I'd like to start off on page 3. In 2019, there was a building study that we were given, and the study was done of the middle school building as well as of the high school building. So, and I don't know how to turn off text messages on my Mac, so I'm just gonna mute everyone and tell them to stop. So I don't. So in 2019, it outlined where the grade levels by hallway and the assignments were all, the grade levels in terms of classrooms were all on the second floor. I just want to be clear that in the summer, when we walked with the leadership team, we had outlined a section of the second floor for instruction. We know that at this time, I believe they would need about 9 sixth grade classrooms, as well as additional classrooms for specials and for that, one of the things we looked at was that our district offices, for example, our business office, where we have our PD center, even possibly my office may need to be relocated to free up instructional spaces as well as offices. We haven't finalized that section yet, but we do know, even looking at the studies and the models that was done in 2019, there were about 4 to 5 options. And of those 5 options that were given, I think option 3 cost us the least, which had us relocate some classrooms. But in terms of additional SE classrooms and other things, we really needed to ensure that we laid out. So there are sufficient bathrooms. The one thing that we did determine in this study was that there were actually options, and it looked like the intent when this was done was to have a true middle school model, which was 6-8, where the 6th grade, I want to be clear, is not joining the region. They are just being housed in the region. But there are enough bathrooms, and there's no space constraints anticipated. There's no major impact to the instructional spacing at this time. Building alterations, I want to be clear that the business office and PD center would be converted back into classrooms for specials. No major alterations are needed. There is one layout that suggested probably building additional restrooms on the bottom, but once we give back the adult restrooms and those things on the bottom, we should be fine. There's no major alterations that would be done to the building. Amherst did provide funding for reasonable modifications to be made. So they did provide funding for the 6th grade move into the middle school building, for us to do whatever we needed to do to ensure that they can fit in there. In terms of logistics, some questions that I was asked to clarify upon is the sixth grade schedule, and in terms of how it would impact the region. As of right now, they would follow the start and end times of ARMS to have minimal operational impact to ARMS. However, sixth grade would have a dedicated lunch period, so which means that their schedule would start and end, but also would have the instructional blocks in between would actually flow in a manner that it didn't interrupt or have a second bell running to interrupt what's happening at ARMS. And then we would have a dedicated lunch period. So far, the sixth grade schedule and instructional plan, which we plan to roll out. Tanya McIntyre has been working with Wang and teachers to review and get feedback on different areas. I think right now one of the things we're looking at is specials, especially from the middle school, and we'll talk more about the instructional staff. Transportation, Amherst will pay its portion of transportation costs. We do know that based on our conversations with DESE, we need to keep a very clear budgetary structure, and that's how we delineate the lines. We plan to continue to keep that clear budgetary structure. Sixth grade students at this time, we're looking at the transportation lines, and they ride the same bus as the middle schoolers. We have been having conversations with the students, and so their concerns are not around riding the bus. In terms of sport, again, sixth grade will not be in the region, so therefore they are not in the region and they're not eligible for MIAA waivers. There's no effect on middle school sports, although at some point we do need to talk about how we funding middle school sports to allow for more of our students to play. But there is no effect. There are sports clubs, but in terms of our under region and sports, sixth grade is not joining the region, so there is no eligibility for MIAA waivers. In terms of the leadership structure, we have one principal who will oversee grade 6 to 8, ensure alignment and consistency. It's an additional grade level. It is not an additional building to say. So I know in the past, individuals in the district have hovered between buildings. This is one building. This is just an additional grade level. There will be a dedicated, we currently have Ms. Jess Nardizi, who is our assistant principal for grade 7-8. She works closely with Mr. Rodriguez. Right now, this is her first year. There will be a dedicated assistant principal for sixth grade. We plan to, and I think we've already advertised, if we haven't, to start advertising for this position by the end of the month so we can identify this individual. And the idea is so that as the plans for the sixth grade comes in, that our principal is able to continue to work within the region, do what needs to be done, consult with the plan, but not focus in solely on the plan. We did hire a second dean. We looked at the behavioral data of the middle school. We know that the bullying reports, we know that the incident that occurred all call for some additional behavioral interventions and preventions at the middle school. So we did hire a second dean. It is our plan to determine about fiscally sharing that dean for sixth grade in the upcoming year. In terms of other supplemental staff like guidance counselors, school adjustment counselors, special education, sixth grade will have to have their own individuals that will go on their budget and that will not impact our budget. So we will not be having in the region, it wouldn't be an additional load to our regional employees. The sixth grade will come with their own counselor and staffing. In terms of instructional staff and the impact to the region, so the core instructional teachers at Amherst, we were able to identify teachers who are interested in teaching the sixth grade academy, which means that there will be, at this time, there is limited to no impact. There is no impact to our core teachers in the region. Where the current conversation is on the specials and world language teachers. And that is where the sharing or collaboration is under this current discussion. They are finalizing, I believe the meeting is tomorrow with the specials and world language teachers. They've met at least once before, I believe, once or twice. I think they're meeting again. And to kind of talk about scheduling. What are the thoughts? How does this look like? So that we can have that impact in determine what that impact would be as we plan this out. But right now, in terms of core teachers, there is no impact in the region. This is one of the key areas that I do need the school committee to focus in on. In terms of the lease agreement, in meeting with DESE, we do not have to, we do have to create a lease, but we don't have to submit the lease to the commissioner's office. What we actually need to submit is a formal write-up. And the write-up answers a series of about 15 to 20 questions, all of which is inclusive of what I talked about this evening. What's the instructional impact to the region? What's the space impact to the region? What may the region lose? What's the fiscal, like those types of things. But there is something that is for me that is concerning. So in our regional agreement, and I attached that, and I think I sent it in the email. In our regional agreement, there is a clause that actually gives the regional school district the authority to execute a lease. However, the last line of that same clause then says that the lease or leases shall contain such other provisions as the regional school district and the town of Amherst acting through its board of selectmen may agree upon, which means that the final lease may have to be approved by a singular town out of the region. I actually am going to ask for the school committee's authority. I had a conversation with DESE around our regional agreement and the opportunity to possibly have a targeted amendment just to this clause so that we can execute this appropriately. One of the other things that I believe I've heard, and in my research and reading about this from the regional end, was a concern, was the line that talks about the period of the lease or lease shall not exceed $100 per room per year. And I think that that is actually a concern that I heard and so what I'm going to, what I would like, I haven't drafted anything because I wanted the school committee's feedback on this. One, I would like us to take the opportunity to update the lease language in our regional agreement. What that would require is one, I do have a follow-up meeting with DESE. If there are things in our regional agreement that are severely outside of compliance with the law, then we would have to update all of those things on this, right? However, if there is any way that we can have a targeted amendment because of our current situation, then we would be allowed to do so. I would like to propose to the school committee that, I did ask them to analyze, so we do have a follow-up meeting. I would like to propose to the school committee or ask the school committee to authorize me in some way to update this lease language so that, one, I would love to suggest alignment with market rates or remove specific cost language, because I think that a 1961 amendment, $100 was probably a lot then, but it's not a lot now when we think about utilities and everything else that we're in, maintenance of the building and upkeep. So those are things to consider. And then granting only the regional school committee to approve the leases, removing that, because at the end of the day, it's a regional building. It is for 4 towns. And I don't see the equity in or parity in having one town be the final approver with their school district. So that's really very critical right now because this is the time to enter into the conversation around the lease agreement, how much it's going to cost, what is it going to look like. But I would currently have to abide by the $100 a classroom per room per year. We also have other MOUs that we are updating for different agencies and stuff that use our building, and this hinders us in that. And so we need to be able to update that so that we are not, for lack of a better word, cutting the region short, and really not taking advantage of the fact that we could be generating some revenue. So I know the FSS would be very interested in this class. And I wish I was there to see Bridget's face, but I see her holding her. But I do feel like out of everything, this is an urgent matter because we have to get this information submitted. So I will continue to work with DESI to determine what are some key critical next steps. But I did want to bring this to the forefront of the fact that there are a lot of things that we need to update in our regional agreement, but this one is very important. One, because of the establishment of this lease, but two, because we are in a renewal year for other leases that use our regional properties. And that is it for me.
Okay. So I think we have lots of questions. I wrote myself down first. I see Jennifer and Deb and Sarah are already on the list. Okay, so one, do you need a motion for us to authorize you to work with DESI to, is it just Amendment 3 to the regional agreement, or do you need it to be broader than that?
I need it to be Amendment 3.
All right.
And if there's any change, I will come back to the committee. Like if there's anything, like if DESI says, well, you can't just be this, I will definitely come back. But it is Amendment 3.
Okay, so before I make a motion that says I authorize Dr. Z to work with DESI to update Amendment 3 to the regional agreement, is that sufficient for what you would need?
No, I think this is let me get the section of it's okay, hold on. Our regional agreement, this is under section.
It's on page 4.
6.
Yeah, but I need the section. I need to tell you the section.
6.
Section 6. Subsection G. Section 6G.
Section 6G. All right, so if it said, Dr. Z to work with DESI to update Amendment 3 to the regional agreement, Section 6G, is that sufficient? Or just not say, get rid of
Amendment 3 and just say Section 6G.
You got it. All right. All right, so I will move to authorize Dr. Z to work with DESI to update Section 6G to the regional agreement.
Second.
Yep, Anna?
I think making an amendment to the regional agreement cannot be done just between the superintendent and DESI. It has to be approved by all of the towns.
Yes, agreed.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
but DESI has to bless it before
Oh.
it can go to the towns, right? So like if Dr.
Okay.
Z works with DESI to write an amendment or to fix this section in a way that DESI and the commission,
We'll approve it
would
once it's approved.
then
Okay.
it will
Got
come
it.
back. It is just about working to.
Got it.
And can I clarify? It has to come back to the school committee and be voted upon by the school committee. Once the school committee approves, then it can go to the towns. So I actually have to work with legal counsel to update this language, bring it back to you to vote upon, and then we take it forward. So it's going to be a series, and then it goes to the town. So you still have to approve it first.
Yes. Okay. Any further questions on that, Jennifer?
So, sorry, just, I'm making sure I understand what's happening. We're authorizing Dr. Z to develop an amendment to the regional agreement. And then she's gonna go off and write it with legal counsel. It's gonna come back to us to approve the amendment?
Yes.
And then DESI's gonna approve it?
So
No, she's gonna go off and work with Desi and legal counsel to write an amendment, and then,
Yes.
and then we're gonna approve it, and then it has to be approved by each of the 4 towns' governing bodies.
Yes.
Yes,
Does it need to go to the town's town meetings?
yes.
Isn't that gonna take a really long time?
Yes.
I mean, is it gonna be like, are we thinking like spring town meetings? And is this gonna be in time for when we need it by?
So that's, so as soon as I found out, I'm sorry, Sarah.
No,
Go ahead.
this this has happened as quickly
Sorry,
as it can.
I know Sarah had her hand raised, but Dr. Z, you were speaking. You can continue speaking. You were saying something.
No, I think I cut off Sarah Bess.
Oh, I
heard
thought you were
someone-
talking about Sarah Marshall. I'm sorry. I'm just, I'm
So
trying to
what
get an answer to
happened-
my question.
Okay, so here's the answer. It's gonna take some time, yes, but it has to happen. So the thing that is that as I am trying to firm up this whole process, I found this language, right? And I was back and forth in like, is this the language that we have to work in? In my meeting with Desi last week, I said, is there any way that I can update just this language? Like just this. And from that, that's how I got the steps of the possibilities. That's why I presented tonight and say, they may be able to, they haven't confirmed yet. I'm going to work with them to see if we could have a targeted amendment. Once we do that, then we will have to go through and get it approved by the towns. But their process does start with the school committee saying yes to do this. So it will have to happen in time. I know the negotiations will have to happen. It really helps that I don't have to submit a formal lease to Desi. I have to just submit the outline with the spacing and the cost. But I think that we could kind of work to get this done because this is critical.
Thank you.
Anna, you had a follow-up?
Yeah. How many towns need to approve the amendment? All of them? Okay.
Bridget, was your hand up about this motion? Yep, go ahead.
So I'm going to vote for the motion, but I think as we go through this process, we're just going to run into the big picture question. Like, is this actually of value to the middle school students? And so with my region hat on, I think we have to make sure we're making space sometime, I'm guessing, during this meeting, when the motion is done, to talk about like the pros and cons related to having the 6th grade in the middle school. Obviously, this is important because the real only pro I can think of to the region is the finances.
Thank you. Did you have to the motion? Yep, go ahead.
So I know you'll think globally about this, but one of the things I've come across when I've meandered through documents is that the section of the middle school that is rented out by Amherst Rec doesn't necessarily, the leasing doesn't necessarily cover the expenses. In particular, something about a boiler and like shoulder seasons and heating. So let's make sure the region gets the money it needs to run the building, the pool, all those things. And then the other part is, I know I'm getting ahead, but I don't think I'm going off agenda. If we're going to have 6th grade students using the auditorium, that impacts the divvying up of, or maybe it doesn't, of the roof, the part of the roof that towns are now considering paying for on their own, the middle part. But maybe not, because maybe that's just part of what it means to lease a building. I don't know, but you'll figure that out. So those are 2 points. The other question about the motion is, are we just authorizing you to amend that section for the costs? Because the part that I'm really not understanding is why Amherst Town Select Board, or whoever it is involved in that decision. So I would ask you to think about the wisdom of that part of it.
So I'm going to answer number one. those MOUs are up for renegotiation and reconsideration right now. And so this is why this is actually timely. It's not just about the sixth grade. It's all about many of our MOUs that use regional buildings and spaces are actually up for renegotiation. Number two, I actually do not want to only amend the cost. I do actually want to empower only the regional school committee to approve leases directly. So really to find a way to remove that line and leave it to where it's the regional school district who authorizes leases, because it's a regional building.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Yeah, just one other oddity about the existing language, I'm not sure has been pointed out, but I hope it can be corrected. The second sentence starts, "the period of said lease." That means a duration, but then it goes on to give a price. All right, so that makes no sense. I mean, you would expect the period of the lease shall not exceed 1 year, you know, or 3 years, or whatever. So to mix the period of the lease and the rental cost doesn't make any sense. So, but you and Desi probably already see that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Tim?
Withdrawn. Deb covered it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything further? All right. So, motion is to authorize Dr. Z to work with Desi to update section 6G of the regional agreement. All those in favor? Look at that. Excellent. All right, Dr. Z. There we go.
Yay!
Point of order, who seconded? Was it William?
Oh, William.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you all very much. All right. Now on to
No. Point of
regular
order.
questions about the other things.
Scrolling.
Oh, okay. So I previously had Deb, Sarah, and Jennifer, whose hands shot up right away. So Deb,
No, I'm good now.
you're good. Okay.
I withdraw.
Sarah,
Okay, so 2 questions. One about the bathrooms. You said there'd be plenty of bathrooms. That's good. Bathrooms are expensive. But can you say whether the planning is sufficiently detailed that you can tell us whether there will be 1 or more bathrooms specifically for the 6th grade? But for some reason, that was a big concern. Or maybe I should wait till an Amherst meeting, but that was a question that, okay, we can turf that. The other one was just passing in the halls, because it sounds like the schedules are not, if they're not so different that they need a different bell schedule, will there be a lot of mixing in the halls? Because that will be another concern.
So from the regional perspective at this time, we do not, because I think what ended up happening before is that there was a plan at some point to just bar off bathrooms that would only be 6th grade bathrooms. However, that would then restrict the bathrooms for the regional students, and it would cause us to not have enough restrooms. That building at one point held over 800 students. The students in terms of maturity are within the same age range. The students coming to the region will actually be coming together in a pair, which means that the 5th graders will be the 6th graders and the 6th graders are the 7th graders. So there would actually be 2 cohorts that would be coming into the regional building, with the 7th graders coming into the region that would have had or known each other. And so, no, at this time, the plan does not call for specific restrooms for 6th grade. In terms of the passing in the halls, based on the layout, 6th grade would have their own their own area, but in terms of probably traversing to specials or things, they would move together. For me, they will not operate as one school building. The region will have their 7th and 8th graders. To me, they're all within the same social, behavioral, social, emotional age range. And so I don't see the impact right now. And I believe the team and I, we've discussed this. If there's something we're missing, we are open to hearing concerns and comments. But at this time, we don't see that happening. I hope I answered your question, Sarah.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
I have a few questions. So, first, sorry, it wasn't clear from the slides. Are some of the central offices going to be turned into educational space?
Yeah.
Okay. And so then where are those offices, where are those people going to work? Where are those offices going to, where are those people who occupy those offices going to go?
We're looking at a few options right now. We haven't finalized that.
Okay.
And once we do, we'll present it to, well, it'll be all three committees, I guess, because central office serves all three committees. But we are looking at some options. In essence, they actually take up prime educational space, and they're also in the middle of the middle school. I don't see how the central office, like for example, our business office is in the middle of the middle school.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
And then I have a question about transportation. You said that the sixth graders would ride the bus with ARM students, but actually middle school students and high school students ride the bus together. So sixth graders will be riding the bus with 7 through 12 students. Is that right?
I'll have to confirm. I don't think that that's how we were currently laying it out. But the students and their safety are our first concerns. So I definitely will confirm that. But
Yeah. I'm pretty sure currently middle school and high school students ride the bus together. They're on the same schedule and they get picked up at the same time at the same school buses and they ride the buses together. So I just wanted to make that's what I meant.
I understand,
okay.
but we also have to take into account that it would also require a whole of like an increase of 144 students. So in some of the work that we're doing right now in terms of for the Amherst region and the boundaries and stuff, we're also looking at transportation and how what that impact would be. That may call for a difference in how transportation is laid out at the region. So that's what I'm saying, like, that's not finalized right now, but it is one of our final discussions. And when we look at what where we need to be.
Okay, great. And then just lastly, I only sort of recently learned about waivers and what that means. But when you say that sixth grade students are not eligible for MIA waivers, you're saying sixth grade students will not be able to play middle school sports.
Correct. They're not joining the middle school. They're still
Middle
remaining.
school sports. Yeah, they won't be able to play, or high school sports. They just won't be able to play sports with the middle schoolers or the high schoolers. I just wanted to say that because won't be able to use waivers doesn't always mean anything to people, because I don't think that people know what that means. And then you said special.
Jennifer, I want to be clear that there's no sports in the elementary district right now.
I know.
So
I know.
Yeah.
Right, and that won't change. Sixth graders still won't be able to play sports, team sports with the middle school. That's
right.
No, there's no change. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I get it. Because I think that's one of the questions that people had is, will sixth graders be able to play sports with the middle schoolers? And the answer is no. Okay.
No, they're not. No. And they're not joining. They're not a part of the region. No.
Yeah, I got it. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And then you said socials, specials, and world language instructors was still under discussion. So, does that mean that, like, for example, band and orchestra, that's a special in elementary, but it's not really, we don't really have specials in them. So anyway, I was just wondering, has it been determined if, like, the middle school band and orchestra instructors will instruct the sixth graders, or will that still be I'm trying to keep my questions focused on things that are relevant to the middle school as opposed to things for the sixth graders. But
it's very hard. It's very hard. So maybe next time we'll have a joint committee meeting. I don't know.
Okay.
But I will say this. What we looked at is that band and orchestra are separate. So there are two things at play here. There are two separate districts, and the housing of sixth graders coming into the region, which everyone really is very clear on. And I'm going to say this: logistics drive efficiency. So band and orchestra are still from Amherst, and they will be giving instruction to our sixth graders.
okay.
I've had a conversation with some upcoming sixth graders as a superintendent. When I went to the fifth graders, I spoke with them, and they would like the opportunity to play in the band in the middle school. Well, middle school has like seventh grade, grade 7 band and orchestra, and grade 8, right? So they would probably be creating the grade 6. In terms of world language, again, what we want to be clear about is the fact that I believe we learned that in about 2021 or 2022, there was actually a summer group, a cohort of teachers to include world language and other teachers that came together to talk about what this 6-8 model would look like. In that conversation, there was a discussion about creating I want to say the word is at the tip of my tongue, but I'm going to say like exposure. Yeah, exposure into world languages is what I'm going to say. Opportunity for the 6th graders, where they would have a rotation of the different world languages in different parts of the school year, probably by quarter. So they'll have like an intro to Chinese and intro to advanced Spanish, or an intro to Latin, and then so that would be like a part of their courses of exploration, like a world languages exploration, and it'll be a part of the opportunity. And so what ends up happening is that by time they are ready to enter into the region, they can decide what world language they would like to be in. That would be a part of their rotation. In terms of specials, what ends up happening is they're still going to have art like they have right now in 6th grade. They're still going to have health and PE, which they have now in 6th grade. They're still going to have band and orchestra. So what we are actually having conversations with the teachers around is, how does that look, right? How does that look for 6th grade? We're also having that conversation about how that's going to look. And this is a separate hat. And this is why I try to keep my hats on clear for K-5. But in terms of 6th grade, what are the specials that we're currently going to have? And then how do we integrate some parts of what the work that was already done and established from 2022, which, had a great plan and layout for integrating students into like that, the different models and advantages in a 6th grade academy. I hope I answered your question, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. William?
So I had some transportation questions, but I will hold those until you have a better plan for that. So.
And but what I want to say is, logistically, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade will for sure end up riding the same bus because they are going to the same building. We just need to finalize our routes and what that's going to look like, because what we would be planning for is an increase in population that would possibly impact the routes to the high school. But so I just need us to finalize those numbers and finalize what that's going to look like. But for sure, it wouldn't be 6 through 12 on the same bus. We definitely would aim where it would be 6, 7, and 8 definitely riding the same bus. But those are the things that we want to finalize before we announce and say, this is what's happening. I just want to clarify that.
A follow-up on the transportation question would be, from the region and personal, my daughter came to the middle school, high school for 6 years. She probably rode the bus maybe 6 times at most. But the bus stop was at our driveway every year. And my neighbors had their bus stop at their driveway every year, and their child may or may not have taken it as many times as my child did. When I lived in other districts, other states, families would commit to having a bus route or not. Do we have to offer, like this may be a regional thing, I don't know. Like, why was my family always offered a bus stop if we never were going to use it? Maybe that's something, maybe you can look into that. It was just a question. Don't have to answer it now.
So definitely, I would definitely look into that to determine what the process is and why. Oh, Shannon. Go ahead, Shannon.
We're required to hold their seat whether they're on the bus or not.
Okay.
And I think, and I'll expand on the location of the bus stop. But I think too, if it's a certain amount of mileage apart, then it usually accounts for where we pick up. So the distance between you, yeah. So I would also have to look into that to determine why, because usually it's a certain amount of distance and there's a centralized bus stop in between that distance. But if students have to walk over a certain amount of miles, then between the stops, and that's probably why it would pick up. So I'll look into bus stops and the efficiencies.
Thank you. And then my other question would be, how will this impact our nurses for the region? And have we thought about that? And then my
Yes.
last, go ahead, sorry.
We have thought about that. One of the things that we are looking at right now is looking at the needs of our sixth graders, the upcoming sixth graders, to determine the impact to our building and what that would actually look like, what that would call for. And so it, we want to determine what that load would be for that individual, depending on the needs of the students. So that is a conversation that we're having.
And then my last question would be, how would it impact our library? I would assume we would be sharing the library between the sixth grade academy and the middle school regional. And then my last caveat onto the library thing is, do we have sufficient books in our current library to support the sixth grade academy? And if not, will we be having the libraries of the elementary schools and the region working together to maybe pull some resources from the elementary libraries that are more targeted for sixth grade and bring them and incorporate them into the middle school library?
Were you in my office today?
Sorry, I was not.
You weren't? You didn't
No.
come and visit today?
I did not, no.
You did not. Okay. So we actually were having that conversation today, myself, Tanya, and we discussed the fact around we would be consolidating so we have there's two libraries that would be, two school buildings that would be closed down in Amherst. Gotta keep my hat clear. And so one of the conversations was, when do we start that logging and that information and having the timelines in place? So we do plan to meet with librarians to talk about that, including our middle school librarian, to talk about titles, grade level, like adequate titles for grade levels, what that may look like. And also having the conversation, because we do have library as a part of the rotation for specials, because it's a part of the rotation right now. So what would that look like and what would that impact be? Because library is also a part of the rotation in the region, right? And so that is a part of the current conversation in terms of rotation of library that's happening right now around how do we lay out and what the impact would be. We have not finalized that because, like I said, we are finishing the academic plan, and that part of that plan is specials, rotations, and those things. But we did discuss today identifying 5th and 6th grade, because 6th graders, their reading levels vary. The content that may need to be packaged and bundled and brought to the middle school for libraries, as well as what that rotation would be. How many individuals are we currently going to adequately need to rotate that? And what supports would we need at the region? We may need, I was told we used to have like a library paraeducator who would support the libraries in the region. Maybe that's something we will look at, but we want to finalize and get input first around what's the most effective way for 6th grade to operate without impacting current region operations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tim?
Withdrawn.
Okie dokie. Deb?
Okay, it's like Jennifer, I'm going to try to keep my regional hat on. I know just want to remind anybody tuning in at the moment that this is a regional meeting, so any questions that we have, we're going to hold off on. I had a clarifying question about the requirement of the seats. I know Shannon was the one who said, my understanding is that we need to have a seat on every bus for every regional student if we're going to get regional transportation reimbursement from the state. Is that correct?
I can get back to you on that,
Okay.
but that vaguely sounds familiar to me.
Okay. And then, can't read my own handwriting. It is. I know what I was going to ask. It's an enrollment question. So, Dr. Z, I think you said 9 classrooms, 144 students for the 6th grade. 9 classrooms that for the academy on 144 students. Is that 144 students based on the October 1 data, or is it like how? I'm used to looking in budget books and, flagging in my own mind that the enrollment data is from the previous October. So just wanted to ask how current that number is and whether or not includes having space for choice students.
So-
Incoming choice students, not existing choice students.
So I'm planning based on our projections,
Yeah.
that we have, not based on the budget book. So we've been using our numbers that we projected out. We've been using the same numbers as Tim, and for our boundaries and stuff like that for each of the years. And then if it includes choice students, it includes the students who are currently choiced in. We have not taken into account, and that might be an Amherst conversation, whether or not we would be opening up for choice in the sixth grade. What I will also say is, I estimated 9. I think it's actually closer to 8 that we would actually need. And then I know that we would need some SE classrooms. So I think I said 9, but I'm thinking it's closer to 8, like gen ed classrooms that we may need. And then we would need some additional SE, special education classrooms. The one thing, Deb, that I also hear you asking, and I just want to clarify to make sure that I'm clear, and I probably did not scribble this correctly. You asked us to clarify about the reimbursement of transportation, correct?
I just wanted to make sure I understood correctly that the requirement for having a seat on the bus for every regional student goes back to getting the transportation reimbursement as a regional school district. It's
Okay.
not really relevant, just wanted to make sure I understood it for general purposes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Get the information to you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Bridget?
I have 2 comments and then a question. The first comment is, and this might be the wrong hat, so excuse me, but I'm really anxious about that timeline. It seems like getting decisions from the towns in June about whether the 6th grade academy can be there and what the rates and the charges and all that will be. It sounds anxiety producing to me. The second comment I have is definitely with my regional hat, I'm thinking that we're going to have the entire town of Amherst together in 6th grade, as opposed to some kids from 5 different schools all coming in together into an integrated middle school. We're going to have the Amherst cohort, the largest cohort, all together, and now the small towns just coming in. And I'm worried about the social emotional impact of that on middle schoolers and what the sort of plan is from that perspective. And that's another piece of like us thinking through whether it makes a lot of sense from the regional perspective, you know. And then my 2 questions are, and it sounds like you're working on this, but I'd love details on what the special ed plan is. I know that Building Blocks, Ames, and ILC all really benefit from those kids having special separate programs because they're very different populations. And so how, you know, that's 3 teachers at the 6th grade, or are they going to be integrated with middle schoolers? So that's a question, and I guess the same thing might be true for ELL. What's that going to look like? That's my first question. And the second one, do you want to take that one first? If you have.
I'm jotting it down.
Okay,
Because
perfect.
I'm jotting it down because I want to debrief with my team, so.
Okay,
Go ahead.
perfect. And then the second one is that 2022 committee of teachers that worked on the floor plan. I wondered why we weren't going with the floor plan they recommended. I guess they had the 6th graders in the back where they had their own entrance and their own bathrooms and their own science classes and would create more of a separate space. And I just wondered why we were moving away from that model.
Okay, so let me start with your first question. In terms of, and I have to say this publicly, and I'm wearing my Amherst hat at this point and my region hat at this point. I want to say this publicly because I think there's a misnomer out there that outside of us having to by law, I firmly believe in giving children what they need. So the 6th graders are coming with the Building Blocks, the Ames, and the ILC programs because that is what they need. What we have had conversations around, including, what is it? When I did a listening session for the middle school teachers around what are their concerns and what happened there, they expressed like, hey, there's some programs, maybe, like for example, they talked about Ames, where the teachers who are currently in the middle school knew all of the students in the Ames program who were in sixth grade. So they had like a relationship there. But but there was no agreement that they would be the same teacher for the sixth graders. So how we are planning it right now is that these sixth grade programs are coming with their staff, because we have to actually provide the services for these children. It is what they need. And the same goes for our multilingual learners, our English learners. We will be bringing the staff that's required for our English learners to the region. In like, we're not regionalizing sixth grade. And so I know that you made the comment about the social emotional impact of the seventh graders who would be entering from the 3 other towns the following year. I just want to be very clear. I am working the plan and I am working with the ingredients to the punch that I had received. And I'm trying to make the most flavorful fruit punch. And so for me, at the end of the day, our children deserve the best effort and the best possible programming. And so it is very hard for me to, at this point in the game, to be talking about what ifs. I just need to continue mixing the flavors and putting together all of the essences and sugar and water and juice together, fresh fruits, to make the most flavorful punch that will benefit our children. So our students will have their special education services. They will have their English learning services, ELL services. To be clear, the 22 committee, I learned this. In the 2019 study that was attached actually has the back entrance and all of those things as one of the options. So if you go into that study, I believe I emailed the full study. That was done in 2019. There seem to have been multiple versions of this plan over time. Even in that layout, it talks about where you would see 6-8 Amherst only, 6-8 like everybody, 6-8. So there were multiple iterations of this plan. What we are doing right now is we're looking at all of the iterations and saying, oh, these all looked great for 2022, 2019, 2023. We need a plan for 2026. One that talks about a current infrastructure that meets that way, one that looks at our current population, one that looks at what we're doing, and then getting feedback and working in that way. We also realized there wasn't a clear educational plan outline or written that we had received in one place for sixth grade. And so we wanted to, so that's where we're moving towards right now, making sure that we take a lot of the input and the work that was done and kind of bringing that into one place. So I hope I answered your questions, Bridget, but they did not work on, and if they did, I may not have that in my plethora of because I mean, when I tell you there are a series of documents from 2019 come forward that we've been filtering through and pulling through, that would fit the current mold of what we are at and our logistics that we need.
Thank you. Sarah?
Yeah, a couple, just 2 observations maybe. Yes, to get the lease amendment passed, that seems tight, but the current regional agreement has not stopped us from renting out space and having memoranda of agreement for building users. So I don't think it's going to be a problem. And even if there isn't a memorandum of agreement, the regional agreement says, yeah, you can make a lease and you charge $100 per classroom, which is not great for the region, but it's a thing that can be done. So I don't think the move is in danger. The move of sixth grade to the building is endangered because we don't have current lease language. We would certainly like to have something that makes sense and is up to date. But I don't think we need to worry about like it won't happen. And the other thing is about concern I've heard about whether having what might be the impact of the sixth graders on the seventh and eighth grade experience. And I'm looking back to a timeline I made that went back to 2021 and all the times that issue about sixth graders coming in some capacity, there's elementary students or regional students, to the regional school committee, all the times that was discussed. And the region did discuss the potential impact on the seventh and eighth grade experience. It already did that, and it voted to let the sixth graders come here. So I think that decision has been made. The Amherst School Committee needed that decision to be made before we, moved ahead. That being said, of course, the middle school leadership will be alert to making it work for seventh and eighth graders.
Thank you, Sarah. I have Tim and then William.
There's a lot I don't know about the history and background of this change. So Sarah, what you were just saying was helpful. I'm curious to know the details, but I don't need to know the details of those previous votes. It seems like the decision to build a new elementary school and combine two elementary schools into that elementary school in Amherst was a very kind of like that was a domino that is now knocking down all the dominoes in a sequence, and we're trying to keep up with those dominoes. Whoa, what happened there? When was that decision made? When was that vote made about the elementary school override?
21? Yeah, go ahead, Sarah, if you know.
I think that the superintendent came to town council in 2018 and asked for approval of the letter of intent or something going to MSBA that laid out kind of in broad strokes what the plan would be. And there's a lot of history here. This happens because of a failed earlier project. So I don't think we need to go. I will send you this document and you will.
Okay, thank you.
That might help.
Okay, I'm just wondering if anyone knows when Amherst voted on the override
Voted on
for the school, for the elementary school.
The debt exclusion.
Sorry, debt exclusion, you're right.
May 2024.
Okay, thank you.
The regional committee did vote to let Amherst house its sixth graders in the middle school in
2021, that's what I was alluding
Yep.
to.
It was.
I see. Thank you.
Okay. William.
Just quickly, I would love to rent an office space for $100. Before we change anything.
No, thank you.
I do think, I want to speak on something that Sarah said, that we don't have to worry. I do think we do, because I believe that the regional school committee has to approve the lease and vote on the lease. So if we're only going to get $100 out of it, we may have members here that would not pass it at a majority. So I do think it would be at risk. It's not as easy as it is to say that it's not.
All right. All right.
I wanted
is
to
your
respond to
hand up, Irv?
But on
Yep.
the opposite end of that, there is a cost, and that cost has to be paid by someone. All right? That's Amherst, and we're sitting there. We have to deal with that
Yeah.
on our budget end.
Okay. Dr. Z, final comment before we move on to our next item?
Yes, I wanted to say that definitely we'll move timely on this. We'll move it forward, and we'll ask for what are some of the intermediary steps that we could take while this is moving forward. Perhaps we can do a temporary lease. Perhaps we could, update like whatever we need to do. So I will also ask for those steps, whether through legal counsel, so that we could have advice, and I will keep the school committee abreast of everything each step of the way.
Thank you, Dr. Z. All right. Next. Okay, so we have subcommittee charges, scope, and update reports. For discussion on the charges, so I brought this to the agenda because our subcommittees, I feel like, are more active than ever in my experience, and I feel like they are doing a lot of good work, and that it is important for the full committee to all be on the same page and have full understanding of what all of its parts and pieces are doing. Sarah, yours budget and audit comes up first. Do you mind starting, or
Well,
would you like me
Gosh.
to start somewhere else?
All right, they're two separate things. One was just an update on our recent committee meetings. I don't think I need to go over that. The charge, this draft charge, I think other folks have used perhaps as a model. It gives my view both of, well, my understanding, or what I propose as our scope of work, has become more, defined, first of all, but particularly in our discussions with Dr. Z about what she sees as the role of the subcommittee and the superintendent and the full committee in the whole budget process, where it starts, who leads it, things like that. So that's why I propose what I do for the budget part of the scope. The audit, we already basically did this with Shannon last spring, learning about that whole schedule and discussing the findings with her, and we just gave a brief report to the full committee, and the full committee didn't seem to want to, have to get into the audit itself, although of course it always has that, can do so if it wishes. And fees, that I added that, and my fellow committee members may be surprised, but there is actually a mention of the Budget and Audit Committee, although it may even have a different name, in one of our policies. And it refers to fee schedules, but it doesn't really say what fee schedules. So these are the ones I recall.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. Any questions, updates, feedback?
I just wondered, it might be helpful to see it next to the original charge. Oh, sorry. It might be useful to see it next to the original charge, and then when we created the FSS, we added another piece to it, and I wondered, is that documented? Where's that piece documented as well?
So, as far as I can tell, what comes closest to a charge for any of the subcommittees is what is listed on the, in board docs in the library, where it has that, the RSE subcommittee.
Yes.
Graph, nope.
Yes.
Spreadsheet.
Grid,
Yes.
yes, spreadsheet, also that. So, which also played into part of having this conversation. So that is where that came from. Sarah?
Yeah, so this is what it says in that subcommittee list for the Budget and Audit Committee. Reviews the capital plan, fee requests, and annual budget. That's it. That's pretty vague. Doesn't really tell us. That's just not helpful. I don't think that's helpful. So, sure.
Okay.
I wonder if my fellow subcommittee members, though, had any thought. Is this agree with what you think we should be doing?
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, one thing that stands out is that the description in the spreadsheet doesn't say anything about the audit for the Budget and Audit Subcommittee. So I think it's a fair question to say, we as a broader committee could take the opportunity to clarify what we want the Budget Audit Subcommittee to be working on. And it doesn't have to be finalized today or even you know, we don't even have to come to that decision today. But I think that's an open question that we should, you know, leverage if we find value in that.
Thank you. Deb, and then I hear your hand, Dr. Z. Go ahead.
In order to do our part of this for the FSS, I went back to the meeting that I wasn't here for, like one of the two, June 11th, 2024, where this conversation took place. So I have more clarity on that particular, well, I didn't pay that much attention to your part because it was late and I was tired. But one of the things that I appreciated that William brought up during that meeting was the role of school councils or site councils to inform and engage around what seems like you might be carving out a part for in this budget description. With the, as a first, the sentence that reads, or the middle of the sentence, will lead a discussion with the full committee regarding budgetary goals for the coming year, which kind of makes sense, but which should connect both to the district's strategic plan and the superintendent's annual goals. I'm not sure those pieces make sense given the role, the mandated role, I believe, that school councils and site councils play. And in fact, I wanted to bring that up when we talked about it because I really feel like that part is missing.
The site council.
The site council, because there were three, it was a three-pronged approach to the ongoing concerns around budgeting. And in particular, FSS was supposed to look for revenue sources. The Budget and Audit Subcommittee, as I understood the meeting, was supposed to continue its work, but also really do some proactive planning around goals, or at least, maybe not planning, but analysis around expenses with the superintendent. But that, I think, again, sorry if I'm paraphrasing incorrectly what William said, that really the role of these school councils was to help us understand the budgetary impacts, in particular any reductions on the schools. And I want to make sure that that part is really protected because it's important.
You've touched on what I see as a conflict in a lot of what I've read and been taught as a, incoming school committee member about district strategic plan, district goals, budget. Your superintendent goals should be aligned with your strategic goals, and your budget should be supporting all that so that they're related. Dr. Z's nodding, that's good. Okay. Dr. Z has also said very clearly to the subcommittee, although I still wrinkle my brow about this, that the budget comes from the regional committee. And so I don't see literally how we can design the budget, especially because site councils are supposed to help the principals, I guess, identify what their specific schools need. So it seems like there's a bottom-up process, but there's also supposed to be a top-down process from us, and just how that works, I don't know. So I would say that part of the language here around budget is aspirational, because this is what I think we're supposed to be doing, but I wouldn't say either we're doing it yet or it's a complete description of the budget process, which of course is very complicated. But Dr. Z has her hand up.
Can I just refine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What did
So
you
I'm
say?
not saying that the school councils make the decision, they inform the committee. That's all I'm saying.
This committee,
Yes.
when have they done that?
I'm not saying
Right.
that it happens. I'm saying that that was the discussion in June, and I believe that is the design of these state mandated site councils.
Okay.
And that William very clearly made that,
Okay, I have to look back at that.
that argument over a year ago.
Dr. Z?
I think that there's some disconnect around the process, but I just want to say it may stem away from what Sarah submitted. I actually like the scope of work that she submitted in terms of the budget and audit subcommittee. And it wasn't a discussion in the subcommittee where we talked about a lot of times stepping away from the process when we get feedback about the budget, but having an avenue to route it through that aligns with the committee's eye when they review it. And so that's very clear. I too would like to get some clarity around this site council informing the school committee, because in actuality, and if you look at it, the district the strategic plan, district goals, like those things are supposed to inform the budgetary goals. So I think that we would need some clarity around where this language came from. I know that the site councils work with the schools to develop their school improvement plans. And school improvement plans need to align to what the district's overarching goals or vision of the district is to be. So I used this at a previous school committee meeting where I said, if the district goal is to be the most innovative in STEM, then the site councils and the schools are supposed to be working together to review their data, to develop a plan about how do they get their school to where they need to be and how do they expand upon that. So those processes. But if we talk about the subcommittee, I just would like to say that this is really great in terms of the expansion of the charge, and I support it as superintendent.
Thank you. Tim? Comment?
No, it's fine. I withdraw. I think I just need to listen and learn.
Okay, thank you. William?
So, I really like that there's fees in there,
If there's what,
that there's
sorry?
fees
Oh,
in this, and I hope you are able to take that on. I feel like we have lots of conversations about the fees, and it would be great to have I feel like we have it straight from the office, comes to us, and we have lots of conversations. Maybe we could streamline the process if those conversations could be had with the subcommittee, and then they could present to us about what they think is best. So I appreciate that. The only thing I was going to say about the site councils or whatever, there's a policy BDFA, the school committee, school councils, and it says council's responsibilities, adoption of educational goals for the schools, identifying the educational needs of the students, reviewing the annual school building budget proposal, formulation of a school improvement plan, and then high school council will review student handbook each spring to consider changes. So I think it's supposed to inform us, and they're part of that process. I know when I was on a school site council in New York, the principal decided, it was very different than how we have districts here in New York, but the principals would give a bucket that the school site councils could then have authority over on how they were going to distribute that throughout the school to meet their goals. So, maybe that's something that we could decide in our budget, that there is, a particular bucket that is allowed to each school site council to figure out how they could spend that budget to best fit the needs of what's going on in the classrooms in the school, because I feel they probably have more of a knowledge of that than I do sitting here in this chair. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Deb, final comment?
Yeah, so in my meanderings also, trying to look for some historical documents, I came across parts of the regional school budget, the introductory section, that had budget guidelines and priorities for that particular year. So I think it makes sense. I mean, I think that's what Amherst Town Council does. Finance Committee says, when you're, to the superintendent, when you're crafting your budget, these things are like the core part of what's important to us. So I would like to see that as part of the charge, or at least discussion around including that as part of the charge. It was done in December. They were finalized in December, the budget guidelines for the superintendent, back in
Yes.
2012 or so.
Well, and I think it happened before the like shortly before the not too far before the pandemic, and
Yeah.
hasn't been done since. I don't know how that process happened, like whether it was turfed to a committee, or the whole committee had a discussion and gave some guidance to, okay, now you go write it, but here's what the group thinks. I would say I've wrestled, and I don't know about Sarah Bess or Tim, with, like, we don't have the authority to, like, decide what the full committee's budget goals should be, right? I think it's something for the committee to decide, and then we could take those marching orders and draft guidance, something like that. But, so, yes, I did debate how long to make this scope. Yeah.
Tim?
Yeah, so I'm gonna echo what Sarah just said. I don't think that the subcommittee is going to be designing the content of the budget book. The subcommittee is there to work with the superintendent and her team to make sure their process is moving along as they work on the budget book. And at the last meeting, we did discuss that, you know, Shannon is going to be doing some work on revising the budget book. And then, you know, there was some discussion about finding ways to, you know, craft language that explains to the community, this is the benefit that, you know, the money will be put towards. This is the money that we're requesting from appropriation, and this is what the district is gonna do with it, right? So putting that language more into the budget book, I think makes a lot of sense, and that's where we can see a lot of alignment with the strategic plan. And all of that will come to the broader school committee for discussion and approval. So that was an example of the budget and audit subcommittee discussing with the superintendent and Shannon and NIBE, giving them feedback on their ideas, trading ideas, but ultimately while the regional school committee, it's our budget, we are responsible for it. Superintendent and her team are the ones who are the primary designers. So we're there as design assistants.
Thank you. All right. Oh, I lost my whole sheet. Sorry, too many computers. The update report, Sarah, I feel like has already been.
I don't need to speak to it. I don't
Perfect.
think
All right.
It's like minutes.
Yep. All right, the operating protocols subcommittee.
That's me.
Tim.
So my page is there, and scope is that Sarah Bess, Sarah, and I were formed after the August 26th retreat with Tracy Novick from Mask. The scope is essentially to draft operating protocols for RSC. Keeping it simple, open to suggestions, but for now, really, I could have added this, but by operating protocols, the purpose of that is to, you know, establish norms and guidelines for how we work together in meetings with the intended outcome to optimize the effectiveness of our meetings and to optimize the effectiveness of our work on behalf of the district. So, you know, after 2 meetings, we've got 2 protocols ready to bring to the school committee. We wanted to wait until we had around 5 so that there's more to discuss. We've got 3 more under revision, a couple others in development, and we may have more. We'll have another meeting on Friday. And at the next meeting, I hope to clarify the timeline of when we hope to bring our set of 5 to the committee. And we have a table of what we've been working on. So the ones that are ready are member communications and meeting minutes. Under revision is superintendent and staff communication, responding to the staff or public comment, and then in development is liaison reporting. There's also a lot of school committees have adopted recommendations made by MASC, so we've been looking at that. It's kind of been on the back burner while we focused on specific items that were kind of called out at our August retreat. But I do want to bring the more broad, general set of protocols that MASC recommends and look at those at our next meeting.
Sorry, the next subcommittee meeting?
Next
Or full-
subcommittee meeting, yeah, thank you. So I would say, I'm very open to feedback on what the broader committee wants to see in terms of scope. I would say, wait until we bring our first presentation to see what we're actually doing, and then we can adjust and optimize.
Great, thank you. Deb, comments, feedback?
When you do that, can you help me understand what you're bringing forward, how it is different from policy? Because from what I've looked at, it's not clear to me where that line is.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have talked about making sure that we are aligning with policy and not robbing from policy, like policy has a specific role. And I think we need to understand better what is the meaning of policy and how is it different from protocols. And I don't know, in terms of policy, we vote on it. So it's the same level of authority that would exist for policy as it would for protocols. So I think it's possible, just based on what I've seen so far, it's possible that this could be policy, right? So I need to learn more about what is the intended scope of district policy, because the intended scope of operating protocols is committee effectiveness.
Yes.
Every protocol needs to serve committee effectiveness, and I guess I don't know if that outcome belongs in policy.
My just clarification is that it seemed like a lot of what I was reading is already in policy, so we don't need redundancy, especially when they're operated separately, but focusing on the effective management of the committee is what I'm hoping to come out of that committee.
Sarah?
I would say that I see protocols, the way, in my mind, protocols differ from policy because the protocols need to suit the current committee and the current superintendent and the current chair. And as committees change, as superintendents change, or whatever, the protocols may change. So it's like whatever just a set of expectations about how the committee will behave, but a new committee could do it differently, and it's not as formal an undertaking as policy. So that's how I see it.
Thank you. Anna?
I mean, my understanding is the protocol is the explanation, is the sort of like instructions on how to implement the policy. So you have the policies, and then the procedures are how are we going to make those policies happen? So you're not creating new definitions, you're just giving a procedural accounting of how you can comply with the policies. And so you're not going to say school committee members will act responsibly. You will say school committees will contact the superintendent. They will first, before they communicate with so-and-so, they will communicate with this person. Before they release a statement, they will pass it by this person. But they're not going to say the more generalized communication policy of the school committee. They're just going to say how are we going to do the thing that the policy committee has committed to.
That's helpful. So, I mean, communication policy that we've worked on so far are specifications that Dr. Z would like in terms of how we communicate with her, how we communicate with staff, right? So that is very much tailored to our superintendent. That's a really good way of putting it.
Bridget?
Just,
Can you, microphone?
oh, sorry. One thing that came up in the past when there've been discussions about how we should or shouldn't comport ourselves is that we have a lot of contradictory policy already. And so if you're gonna add another layer, please go back to all that work, synthesize it, decide what we might need to strike, what we're gonna move forward with, because if you've got policy A that says you need to do this and policy B that says you need to do that, and then everyone's like, hey, I followed policy B, and everybody's like, yeah, but you didn't follow policy A, and now we have problems that we don't need to have if we can be clear.
William?
I was going to say, you could always confer with the Joint Policy Subcommittee if you have any questions.
Well, I'm glad you I was gonna ask, because I sort of have this impression that the Joint Policy Subcommittee is like totally jammed with work. Like I don't,
26
I mean, but I might be wrong. But something else, so I'm going to meet with Dr. Z and NIBE sometime this week. And NIBE had shared with me a document, and I was like, okay, I'll look at it, and it's like a bunch of policies. And I was like, okay, I'll have to like figure out how this comes to the Operating Protocols Committee. Maybe there's a discussion to be had there. But we are going to be spending a lot of time looking at policies so that we do the things that you're pointing out. Like, we don't want to create an extra layer of stuff that everyone has to think about. What I want is to create something that makes everything easier for everyone. I will happily come to the policy committee with thoughts and questions and suggestions, but I also don't want to be giving you more tasks.
Thank you. I would say, but you could flag them for us
Sure.
and send them our way.
Okay.
If you saw something, because it's a lot of policies,
Yeah.
a lot of policies from the 80s
Yeah.
and the 90s. So like if, we're working on a section, but if there is policies that you see that are really outdated at any point in time for anyone, I would say shoot them to us.
Greatly appreciated.
And if you really want to rewrite it, you can even shoot that to us. If you're helpful.
Okay.
Jennifer, and then I have a quick comment, and then we can move on to the next one.
Okay, I had a moment during this conversation where I thought I understood what protocols were until this conversation started, and I'm not sure. I guess I see policies as like high-level, non-specific guidance for the district and the school committee, in the same way that we make high-level policies, and then the superintendent and the administration have detailed practices and procedures. I'd see that similarly for the policy committee would have high-level policies, and then the protocols committee would have detailed how do these policies get carried out. I don't agree with what Sarah said about how protocols apply to a specific committee and a specific superintendent, and then when the committee changes, then the protocols might change, because this committee in particular changes so frequently, membership changes quite frequently, that I wouldn't want you to have to revote protocols when membership changes, or for a new member to be like, I didn't vote on that. I'm not quite, I wasn't quite following that. I think if the committee votes a protocol, it should stay until the committee decides to change it. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me respond to this.
Yeah.
So what I see in what Sarah was saying is that protocols should be thought of as softer to change, more readily accessible to new member input, right? Like, it may almost be thought of as a tool for consensus building, right? Like, welcome to the committee. These are our protocols. What do you think of them? Is there anything that you think would work better? We wouldn't do that with district policy, because the point of district policy is, to serve the best interests of the students, and that requires a great deal more deliberation. But I think that Not that every time we have new members join that we should change our protocols. That's not what I have in mind. But since the objective of protocols is to improve committee effectiveness, it should be made clear to new members that everyone should feel they have a stake in changing these protocols, or at least raising questions about them if they see an opportunity for improving committee effectiveness. So the scope of the outcome is very different than policy. Policy we need to be, I think, much more careful with about change.
Okay. Thank you. So I do want to remind us that we have less than 15 minutes. And a few more things to go through. All right, so unfortunately, I cannot make the computer present anymore. I have lost that ability. I apologize. So next in the list is the Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee. We met for the first time last week, for the school year. I wrote a quick overview. I tried to take the form of the topics that are listed on that spreadsheet and include the updates from the things we talked about at our last meeting and potentials for our upcoming meetings. So for the 25-26 school year, it is myself, Tim, and Deb. We will be working with the superintendent to develop the timeline for goal setting and evaluations while coordinating with school committee chairs to hold joint meetings for approvals as needed to align the districts. One of the things we did flag in our last conversation is the need for current goals, right, current year goals, and a mid-year evaluation. And while around the same time the mid-year evaluation is happening, we also will need to start looking for next year's goals because superintendent goals are actually supposed to be set in the spring for the following school year. So on here I have down at the bottom I have outlined a tentative timeline for those pieces that will need to be incorporated. And at our meeting, we also talked about things that worked well during our last round for the superintendent evaluation process, as well as some ideas of places for improvement. So you can see those are on there, and I think that is about it. We also talked about making sure that there's one set of artifacts for goals, standards, and indicators, right? So there are, however, I think it's like 4 to 6 goals per the superintendent's contract. All 4 standards need to be included within those goals. And then there are indicators, which Jessie has something ridiculous like 25 or 30 or something. Like there are a bazillion of them. However, MASC and DESE recommend that you pick 6 to 8 indicators that fit within the goals that you are setting. So you're not measuring on all of the indicators because that is an impossibility for everybody, and to align those. So the meeting on November 11th will be a joint meeting to approve the goals, which those goals will include the standards and which indicators they are associated with. And then we'll move forward from there. Any questions or feedback? Sarah?
Yeah, maybe this year we're finalizing the goals late, which I guess if they're supposed to be done in April, definitely they're late. But unless Dr. Z is already working towards those goals, a January mid-year evaluation only 2 months after approving the goals is like, what could she have done? So, either can we let that go till February? Or maybe Dr. Z can say, oh, well, I'm assuming those are my goals and I'm working towards them already.
So we did have a long talk about the mid-year evaluation point, which is a place for, what?
I thought you never.
Oh, which is a place for feedback on how these goals are progressing, right? So, right, like Dr. Z is still running the district, even though those goals, specific goals, haven't been voted. However, parts and pieces of what she is already doing will fit within them. So, during the mid-year evaluation, that is the place where we can check in on alignment to those goals and making sure that they are achievable, and that in order to make sure that the marking is proficient or exemplary, that the artifacts that will be needed are clear. So there is, clear expectation for both Dr. Z and for the school committee. So everybody has the best opportunity to be as successful as possible. So those expectations are clearly lined out. Anything else? Great. Joint Policy Subcommittee. William?
Yes. So, I think it's pretty obvious what the Joint Policy Subcommittee does, but I wrote it up without conversations of the other people on the Joint Policy Subcommittee, which felt a little odd to me, but it is what it is. We're working on G right now. I just sent off 13 policies to be reviewed by legal counsel.
Working on G? What?
Section G of the
Oh,
policies.
okay.
They're divided by random letters. Anyway, they don't make any sense to me. But we did send off 13 today. Where council agreed they would have it back by October 31st. So then we might be bringing some policies forward. We have 13, 14 more that is on the docket for us to look at. So we are making great progress, and I have to say this year, with the representation from the superintendent's office, we've been able to make great strides on really making sure we're presenting policies that are best interest for all involved and not just one-sided from us. So.
Great. Thank you. Any comment or feedbacks?
I just wondered, William.
Feedback.
Yeah, like as you're talking about that, it reminds me of the Title IX subcommittee and the way they'd work together with the policy subcommittee around the bullying policies. And I just wondered, like, is there an opportunity if we had a committee like that, or the other one that comes to mind is strategic partnerships, which is on hiatus basically because those partnerships have been on whatever, determined in some way. But I think there's questions outstanding from that, especially with the RSC, like how is the RSC, or why does the RSC fall under the town of Amherst negotiations? What's within this, we weren't asked to do that for Title IX or for strategic partnerships because they've been on hiatus, but what's our way of following up on those things, I guess, is just a question to put out to the committee, or how we do that.
Are they still listed?
Are you asking how we follow up on
Like on past committee work that we
like the
still
bullying
need?
and stuff?
Yeah.
It's an existing policy, and so I think the school committee has the authority to hold administration accountable to our policies, so.
So just future agenda planning
I
type
think
of
it'd be
stuff,
future
like-
agenda planning. I don't know if it would be a policy, unless we felt like we needed to go back to those policies and rewrite the policies. And I think if you, as a school committee member, felt that our policies were not in line with best practice, then I would say come to a policy meeting, or
Yeah.
come to the chair and have a conversation with the chair, so then I could take that, and we could, if we need to review the bullying policy, any policy, we could always review.
I guess I'm wondering, like some sort of update on how the policy's being implemented, or, or how's the work that those committees done is being followed through on.
I think that's more outside of the joint policy subcommittee's lane, and it would be,
That's administration.
right, how they're proceduralizing it.
Yep.
So
And then we
future
could
agendas.
reflect on how, do we need to change policy because it's not getting proceduralized the way we want? I mean, I guess.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Tim, was your hand up? No. Okay. All right, great. And last, fiscal sustainability.
I'm going to be short. Ha. I didn't copy Sarah's because it was late and I was tired. So I didn't even look at anybody else's. I just went back, well, I did go back to that meeting. I looked at what we had divvied up. And it was very simple that the fiscal sustainability subcommittee would look at revenue sources. And we've been busy. I mean, we've been meeting with state senators. We've been advocating at the town level. We would like to kind of circle back to something that's near and dear to Bridget's heart, which is looking at infrastructure and greening buildings and hoping against hope that there might be some money out there to help us do that. And I think that's it. Also, I just put a laundry list of things at the bottom that people have discussed, not necessarily things that we've dug into. In terms of maybe not revenue sources, but possible cost savings. Not that I'm saying we're going to do this, but just some ideas. And one of the things that I've learned over my meanderings, as I seem to be saying tonight, is that regionalization is not considered to be a cost-saving measure unless a building is closed. So just in terms of conversations with your towns, because that's kind of where we are going with the report, is providing information to help you, if you want it, engaged with your community, that is not considered, generally speaking. It's a way of enhancing educational opportunities. And I would like to point out that I neglected to include another idea that Jennifer has mentioned, which is Prop 2.5 override. So I will revise that, stick that in, and there's a typo. We started in August of 2025, not 2024, not 2025.
Okay, Sarah.
So 2 thoughts. Yes, this is reads to me like a report or an update, a shorter report. But I think it would be helpful for this committee going forward, not to mention, the members, possible future members of the FSS, to have a much pithier, like 1 paragraph. This is our purpose and scope.
I just have the one sentence.
Well, which?
The
I
rest
said
is-
there's a
the
little
rest-
bit in the
the
first
rest is-
paragraph,
The
and then
rest is
there's,
just an update. I thought it was supposed to be scope and update.
just a suggestion. It's,
I
I mean,
can make that clear.
okay. And, but I also think that, like if you were going to write the purpose, to highlight, and I know it's in here, but to really call out the advocacy piece, because you all have been doing a great job with that, and I think it would be good for advocacy to have a home in the regional committee, and so to say this is where it'll be. This will be the group that takes the lead on, tracking the bills having to do with Chapter 70 or charter or whatever, or meeting with the legislators. I would suggest making that specific.
The question I have is the.
Can you use the microphone?
Oh, there I go. Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm used to having my own, my bad. When we voted the charge for the committee, we were pretty specific. Revenue sources related to fiscal sustainability for the district, like that sort of long-term and forward-thinking look at revenue. So I just think, like, I love the idea of thinking about suggestions, and you wrote a new charge for your committee, and then we would vote on that or whatever, but for the time being, we have to look at those revenue sources. Obviously, advocating for revenue sources has been a big part of it, because as we started to look for revenue sources, we were like, oh, there's things we can do right now. So let's hop on it, and hopefully, God willing, some of those things will come through in this budget cycle. So, and some even did last time, so it's good. But I'm just saying, I think we need to be faithful to what we voted as a committee.
Do you have a
Right,
follow-up?
so that's a suggestion, and we could vote on it, if you wanted to make that an explicit part of your purpose, then you'd bring it back and we'd say yay or nay.
Okay, great. Is there any other updates or feedback? Yep, go ahead, Tim.
An update from me, I'm just going to say it here because there's nowhere else for me to say it in the agenda. I have signed up for too much to do. And so I'm going to resign from the fiscal sustainability subcommittee, and the chair is warm.
It says up to
The
4.
seat is hot.
Yep.
It doesn't
Okay.
say 4, it says up to.
Sarah?
I do wonder, like, what you think we do next. Are we all, whoever drafted each one is going to make some revisions and bring it back? Are we going to vote on them? That's one question. And then however we come to agreement about them, formally or informally, is there a way to, like, you can't put the whole document into that spreadsheet where it says charge, but can there be a link to a document that is maybe on the same page?
That
So,
is what I was hoping. So
Yeah.
that future iterations of this committee will have a more concise, detailed, that, gives the committee guidance and the full committee clarity about what the expectations are. Go ahead, Tim.
So a suggestion about that is that we might think about it in terms of projects as well as scope. Just because, scope is one thing, but scope creep is very easy once you have a scope. So if like, for example, William, you were very project oriented in your description, like you're working on section G of the policy manual, and that is the project scope of what you're working on currently. It's very clear and helpful. So I don't want to get like too detailed about this, but like I think I don't know. I don't need to keep on talking. That's just what I think would be helpful for the entire committee to feel like they're on the same page with all the subcommittees.
My also hope is that we will have more updates and reports like this from each of the subcommittees, because like I said, I feel like the subcommittees are very active and getting a lot of great work done, and it is, even if the update is, we're looking at section G of the policies and I've sent 13 of them off and I will be able to bring, bless you, those 13 back in the next month or so, then that keeps the whole committee abreast of what is happening. And the same is if it's, the FSS is, we are focusing our advocacy on these 3 bills, and we are meeting or have plans to engage with blah, blah, blah over the next 2 months, right? So like being able for the subcommittees to have an active report, something for the committee to react to, which also will then give the committee the place to design the projects that the subcommittees are working on. Because I think I would be cautious to write projects into the scopes as they are unfolding.
Yeah.
And we also need to be able to give the subcommittees space to pivot if something comes up that needs to be taken care of right away, right? So that is what I am hoping with. I will work with Dr. Z's office about figuring out how to make that information more readily available on board docs in some fashion, because I agree the spreadsheet will not hold all this information in a manageable way. Anna and then Bridget.
I was gonna say what you said.
Oh, great. Bridget.
I'm just thinking that it's not completely clear, like, to what extent Dr. Z or someone from the office is involved in different subcommittees. I've been on like 3 that we met once, or when nobody's attended, or maybe one time attended over the 2 years I've been on the committee. And then I'm hearing from other committees that like someone attends all the time and is sort of even driving some of the direction. And so I'm just wondering, like, how does that get decided, and where does, how do we determine to what extent that involvement takes place, and, and then how much of it is like school committee driven and how much is driven by central office, and how does the committee understand which way it's going, or, that kind of things.
Okay. Dr. Z, your hand. Oh, we can't hear you.
You're muted.
Are you muted or is it us?
Oh, we're on our own.
I think it's
We're
us.
doomed.
I don't know how to fix it. All right. Nope. It's us.
That's okay, that's just a food for thought question anyway.
How about now? Say so. Nope.
That's all I got.
Nope. That's fine. It is what it is. I don't. Oh. Hi, Dr. Z. I will. Hold on. Okay, you're on speaker.
All right, so I wanted to clarify for Bridget, and I turned on my volume so I can't hear if she said something, but I wanted to clarify for Bridget, part of that is the actual planning from the subcommittee. I have subcommittee member individuals, but as per my contract, I have to attend every subcommittee meeting. However, I am able to adequately plan for subcommittee meetings if they're on my calendar ahead of time. So, for example, for the ones that I've been able to attend, or if not me, then someone from my office attends, we actually are consulted or reached out to, like, hey, are you available this day? And then in the meeting, we plan for the next meeting. And so some individuals plan the meetings ahead and drop it on our calendars. And then others, I don't know when the subcommittees are, or they're on my calendar and there's already a conflict. So if there's a way to get the calendaring done, I live by my calendar now. So if it helps ahead of time, and then if I'm not there, then a representative can be there.
Super, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, bye.
Excellent problem solving. Okay. So I don't think we should vote on them tonight, as this is the first time we've had the conversation. We can bring it back with a formal scope, which does not include an update. And then we can vote on those for our future selves. Okay. Okay. The Open Meeting Law Fiscal Sustainability Subcommittee.
Point of order.
Oh, yep.
We have exceeded 2.5 hours and would require a motion to continue for another 30 minutes,
Okay.
according to policy BEA.
All right. I will move we extend for 30 minutes.
Second.
Ooh, that was a tie.
Tim? All those in favor of extending for 30 minutes, which I don't want us to take that long. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. All those opposed? 1. All those abstaining?
Oh, sorry.
Aw.
All those already
I was
asleep?
reading the next thing, sorry.
Okay. All right, so we have 30 minutes from 9:10. FSS, open meeting law.
Okay, so last time we met, it was brought to the committee's attention, there was an open meeting law violation by the FSS. And so my understanding is that the way to address this is you just bring whatever was discussed in private and make it part of the public record, and then you have remedied your error. So attached to the document is a draft of the report that we brought forward that I had worked on with another member. Then we had worked on it in open meeting, in a FSS meeting. And then I had neglected to remove members from that draft. So when we separated at the end of the meeting, people were taking different parts. And the proper way of dealing with that would have been to me remove people from that, remain sub quorum in that document, and ask people to send me their edits, and I would put them in myself or the other member. We did not do that. And so what you see is the result. You see the comments, so we meandered from that original intention. We discussed some things in comments. You see those comments. Google Docs is a pain to try to print out comments in, and I did the best I could after spending hours fighting with it. And then there's a memo attached basically saying what I have just said.
Great. Jennifer?
I really appreciate this memo, Deb, and the attachment, and it sounds like a very minor infraction and really easy to do with Google Docs. I mean, not that Google Docs is easy, but easy to, given the structure of Google Docs. So I really appreciate it, and I think that's all I need to say.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, I also feel super sufficient, given that we are policing ourselves. So, okay. Any further comments? Great. All right, so we have our consent agenda, which improves many, many minutes. Thank you
One
very.
month? What? Oh, minutes, I'm sorry.
No, minutes,
There's like
not
warrants,
words.
I'm sorry.
We're not there yet. Minutes, which thank you to Tim for drafting all of them. We also have warrants, which are not labeled as September 1st, September 2nd. They are the 1st in September, the 2nd warrant of September. And then we have a gift or donation. So according to my quick Google research about how to process a consent agenda, are there any items that anybody would like removed from the consent agenda at this time? Excellent. Okay.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second, Jennifer.
Yes. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda? Look at that. Excellent. Thank you. I would like to specifically call out and say thank you to Charles Bradshaw for the donation to the ARHS football team. Sarah?
So just a point of order, I guess. I didn't have any edits to the minutes, but I have a suggestion, and should I just give it to
Sure.
Tim
Yep.
offline? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Well, I have a question
Or-
about minutes in general.
Yes.
I don't know if I need to wait until we're outside of the consent agenda to ask for this feedback or whatever it is I'm going to ask.
We are done with our consent agenda.
Okay. So I've gone back to create minutes from before the time that I started taking minutes, right? And now I am caught up to the first meeting I attended. And we have more minutes from before that time that could be caught up on, which I would be happy to do, but I don't know if that's proper since I was not at those meetings.
Yep.
So I just wanted to clear
Totally fine.
that.
Totally fine.
Totally fine.
Unless they were executive session.
No, yeah, so that's a good point. So I did not take notes at the executive sessions I attended in May and early June before I said, hey, I'll take minutes. So I didn't do those minutes. So we still have outstanding minutes for those executive sessions. And I would not do any executive sessions that I wasn't at.
You're talking about just watching the videos of the meetings you didn't attend, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Then,
totally fine.
yes. Absolutely.
Or there's a little bit of copy paste and AI involved.
Totally fine, yes.
I'm happy to share my methods.
Excellent. Okay. future agenda planning. So I did want to point out a couple of items. So we currently have slated for, today's the 14th, so October 28th, the superintendent presentation on the system of schools, which will include a conversation about potential for if there's capital needs and student enrollment. And then there have been a few other things that have come up, like where we stand with the school site councils. And then we will have a special joint meeting on November 10th, which will include approval of the superintendent goals, a presentation from CPAC, and a conversation around the strategic plan and portrait of a graduate. Then the RSC will be meeting on November 25th. I think that is the date.
Isn't that Thanksgiving?
That sounds like.
I lost my calendar. Yes. November is a little bit tricky because we have Thanksgiving and Veterans Day, and Veterans Day falls on a Tuesday this year. So we had to do a little bit of reconfiguring. So the region will meet on the 25th.
We are meeting on Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving is the 27th.
Oh, God, okay.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
You have to come hang out with us instead of hanging out with your family and eating turkey and gravy. No. So,
Thanksgiving week.
and
Bless.
yes, those are the quick updates around future agenda that I wanted to bring forward. Are there any, Sarah?
I believe all the MCAS data has been released, so I expect the region would like, I would like an update on MCAS for the region.
Okay. Anything further? Deb?
You said enrollment, don't we often get like course enrollment as well as like building enrollment or grade enrollment? I thought there were two things, like we got a spreadsheet of like the courses.
I think that happens in December.
Okay,
I did add it down, but I do think it's a
Okay.
December thing.
thank you.
Bridget, was your hand up?
Yeah, just circling back to that question from before, like an update on the PRS report, the bullying progress, implementation, and welcoming schools.
PRS report, bullying, what was it?
And welcoming schools. I think it's all together. It's really our response to the Title IX crisis.
Yeah. There was a hand that happened over,
This is Sam.
no, Tim, okay.
Something I'd like to think about is, this is part of the superintendent update, but I'm wondering if there's a way that we can see the same set of metrics. This kind of connects to what Deb was saying, the same set of metrics at each meeting, just a brief snapshot, like a heartbeat of the district. Superintendent update is very valuable. I get a lot from it, but I also feel a need to just learn what are the vital metrics of the district that administration is able to keep tabs on a regular enough basis that they can show it to us once or twice a month.
Deb?
One of those would be attendance.
Yes.
Okay, all right, if there is anything else, people feel free to reach out to me. Okay, Jennifer,
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Deb. All those in favor of adjourning? We are adjourned. Thank you.